Hey guys, it's Dan here. So, funny story. I was doing some work on my channel recently when I noticed in my video feed someone had made a response video about me. Specifically, my first Common Writer video, the one where I talk about Black Sun and why I think it sucks. I have to say, this is the first time I've ever gotten a response video like this before. So, considering that they took the time to watch my video and talk about it, I think it's only courteous to do the same to them. So I'm going to check out this video, see what they have to say, and give my reaction to it. Now, just going in, I have not seen the video yet. I haven't seen any videos from this channel yet. This is my first impression of whoever these guys are. So, I'm going in completely blind, and we'll see where this goes. Now, before I get into the video itself, I would like to take a moment to talk about the video's title and the thumbnail. So, the title of the video is Insecure Gremlin, which is me, has mental breakdown over Kamen Rider Black Sun, anti-SGWs need to stop. Now, in response to that last bit of the title, I need to make something very clear. My videos aren't politically motivated whatsoever. I'm here to talk about Japanese superheroes, not politics, because frankly, not only does politics seem to ruin everything it touches, regardless of the subject, there's also just way too much of it. You know, if I wanted to talk about that crap, well, I sure as hell wouldn't be doing it on YouTube. So, sure, I got my own political opinions, you got yours. They're probably different. Hey, that's how free will works. Just so you know, I'm not trying to like subliminally mind control you into having similar political beliefs or me or some bullshit. Like, no, I'm here to talk Common Writer, whether I like it, whether I don't like it, and just have a rather civil discussion about it. Now, I will admit that while my initial Black Sun video, which I might do a look at before down the line, we'll see. Um, while all my opinions are pretty much still the same as when I made that video, you just definitely tell the video was very emotionally charged when I made it. It was very reactionary. I had pretty much made it right after I finished watching Black Sun. And it was a very spur of the moment type of thing. I wasn't planning to make a video on it or whatever. I was just going to watch it and see if I liked it or not. And well, the ending of the show left me so frustrated and disappointed that, well, I made the video and here I am. So there's an explanation on that. No politics needed. There are plenty of ways I can complain about this thing without involving that hot mess of a subject. Anyways, so that's the title. Very interesting title. Then we get to the thumbnail, which is so the top image. It's just a picture from some kind of promotional image for Black Sun that doesn't appear in my video at all. So it's just there because it looks cool, I guess, which is a pretty cool image. Then at the bottom, you see it's kind of the clip where it gives my video title, and you can see my little avatar there. And right above it, you can see a little red arrow pointing at me with the words saying, "This man has no penis," which bold of you to assume I am a man. I am a man. I am indeed a big, strong man, as it would be. But still, bold of you to assume. A very, very insensitive thing to do. And also, just the title, "This Man Has No Penis." It is kind of weird that people on the internet I've never met before would have so fascination of my genitalia. So that's definitely a very interesting start. So yeah, so that's my introduction to this video. That's the thumbnail and title. Let's see where this goes. Okay, I'm gonna hit play. Just give me 1 second. Okay, hitting play. 3, 2, 1.
Before we get into the video, please consider subscribing, liking, and clicking the Discord link down below. Lots of cool stuff going on down there as we basically talk about nerd stuff and whatever else. That said, enjoy. What's up, everybody? Gojin the Makai Phantom approaching ya. So, what many of you would already know, a few months back, Kamen Rider Black Sun hit Amazon Prime Video. Luckily, most people can agree it's fucking awesome and gave what it promised. Multiple, myself included, discussing the possibilities of what a Black RX can do. Some even argue it beats the original, and I'm not completely opposed to that opinion, as good as 87 is. But handling political topics, you're bound to piss off some moron on the spectrum. And I mean that in more ways than one.
So I guess the moronic question here is me. Um, and maybe they're talking about other people. We'll see. But it's just really interesting that they looked at my video specifically for their thumbnail. Well, let's just keep going. Let's just take a look. Let's see.
To be fair, sometimes there's a reason for it, often relating to it being preachy, hateful, or just poor handling of said topics. But then there's situations like Prey, where people are making false woke claims because it happens to carry a left-leaning message, or worse, like Black Sun's case, it criticizes both sides. But maybe this video will offer
Um,
some
I have never seen Prey, and I don't frankly care about it. So my just focusing on Black Sun here.
food for thought. Let's find out.
Hey, that's my title. Thanks for using it, man. It's a cool one, isn't it? Simple, but can't go wrong with The Offspring. At least you're from the '90s.
Okay, an Offspring intro. I like your style.
Thank you.
Let's continue.
Kamen Rider Black Sun is a perfect example of how not to do a reboot.
I'm sorry. It sounds like he just got done deep-throating a group of black dicks after he begged them on his knees to do him instead of his
Well, that's a pretty rude thing to say. Got something against people sucking black dicks? I don't think that's any of your business, frankly.
girl.
From the pretentious rewrites, to the disappointing action, and even relegating the titular main character, whose name is the title of the frickin' show, and turning him into a glorified side character is unforgivable.
Did they? I seen it more as there was a focus on each party, as it's not like she was in every scene with Kotaro and
So he's mentioning my problem with Kotaro not being the main protagonist, despite the fact the show's Kamen Rider Black Sun. I haven't mentioned Aoi yet. I will later. I know where he's coming from, but I haven't mentioned him yet. And it's true that while different factions in the Stardew get focus, Kotaro's not really part of a faction. Remember, he spends the majority of the story being a homeless man living in a bus. He doesn't have that much interaction with the story until like the very beginning when the whole Golgum crap goes down, and the very end where they're trying to take out the Creation King. Anyways, moving on.
current day alone. Not to mention the time jumps it did each episode, focusing solely on them in the past.
Well, it does. Well, the flashback scenes do feature Kotaro. He mostly takes second stage to a. I'm so bad with names. Forgive me. Um, Shadow Moon. Shadow Moon's character gets the majority of the interaction and focus when it comes to those scenes, and Kotaro's just kind of there, going along with what he says.
Does this guy want Daddy Kotaro to put it in his ass? I mean, listening to his voice and looking at Big Daddy Kotaro here, he'll utterly destroy that boy pussy after inserting the entire next generation. Oh,
So, first off the bat, I see it's the problem with people wanting to get fucked in the ass, which is very insensitive. God, I don't know how long I keep this bed up. So, from the sound of it so far, he's trying to belittle me by implying that I am a homosexual. Just gonna let that stand as it is.
Kotaro senpai, don't come at me!
Yeah.
This is exactly what happens when you give a series into the hands of people who have no idea what they're doing or what make people love it to begin with.
Really? It seemed quite respectful to me. It literally takes the base plot of the original show and only wraps it in a political coding to add a shade of real.
So on the cup of the political and the realness and that crap like that. By coding it, I do agree. They code it in the same way that I, as a 5-year-old, would coat the fuck out of my pancakes with maple syrup, to the point where you kind of almost can't see what's underneath. Because so I guess to get down what my main problem with Black Sun is, because I guess this is where it's kind of becoming relevant. is that as much as it claims to be a remake, reboot, reimagining, whatever you want to call it, of Kamen Rider Black, the story really has nothing to do with what the original was trying to accomplish. Sure, the villains are called Golga. Sure, a lot of the main characters share the main character names with the original show. Sure, the Kamen Riders are called Black Sun and Shadow Moon. But that's about it. In terms of character motivation and how everyone behaves, they're completely different from what they were um, portrayed as in the TV show. And again, because so much of the story focus on this whole political thriller angle, which I should say isn't a bad idea for a Kamen Rider series, it actually sounds kind of cool, but it just, in my opinion at least, I don't think it's a good fit for Black Sun. Just like how, at least according to this guy, I guess my ass wouldn't be a good fit for giant black men, but what does he know?
To the property. It literally redoes shots with the base plot being in.
Redoing shots doesn't mean it's a faithful adaptation. Um, to give a good example of this, the Fistful of Dollars cowboy movie starring Clint Eastwood um, got a lot of flack for being an almost shot remake of the samurai film Yojimbo. So just redoing shots that the original did doesn't itself make it a faithful reboot. At best, it's just some really shallow level fan service. You know what I mean? In order for this to really be a successor to the original, it's got to go deeper than that, in my opinion, and I don't think it does.
Intact.
Taking the simple but effective story of a dude in a bug costume fighting against the evils of mutant cyborgs in order to save the world and turning it into a story about the evils of racial prejudice is just the kind of stupid I would expect from modern Hollywood and not a Kamen Rider story.
Dude, are you fucking crying? I love Kamen Rider, but it's literally just a TV show. Chill.
So, I mean, that's what it was advertised, right? Kamen Rider Black Sun. Old, grittier take on the original Kamen Rider Black, which in itself had on some pretty dark and adult themes, at least for a TV show. And notice how he doesn't actually address my problem here. Instead of giving reasons how the show actually does do a lot to be faithful to the source material, he again just tries to um, disagree with me and make me look bad just by insulting me. Basically, I'm noticing a pattern here, is what I'm saying.
Did you just want a remake of Black? Because this is a reimagining. If you want that original story with a less complex narrative and more family-friendly nature, it still exists. You talk like the story isn't the same. While it's no longer a cyborg, the core aspects are still there.
So, don't I say at the end of my video that you're better off watching the original? So, I am acknowledging the original exists. In fact, I'm telling you to watch the original. Um, Granted, maybe he's doing what I'm doing and he's reacting as he goes. So maybe I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and he hasn't gotten there yet. But we'll see. We'll see.
It just changes some things to be more like Amazon's and adds to the story. It sounds more to me like you're just mad it exists. Also, if you compare this to Hollywood, you really haven't been thinking critically about this show, and the whole point is everyone is fucking bad. I'll just click.
Everyone is bad? I mean, even Kotaro? Excuse me, even Kotaro? Even Aoi, who as much as I have a lot of problems with how her character was handled, she's a bad person for trying to find equality with these two different people? Or Kotaro, who's trying to stop all of Goku's bullshit by killing the Creation King? Sure, he waited like 50 fucking years to actually do anything after he failed the first time, but still, I would hardly call him the bad guy in this situation.
My review here, as I said everything I needed there. What I like about this reimagining is they took advantage of the iconic rivalry between friends the original Black had, but built from the ground up through a culture war environment to add weight of realism and thought-provoking overtone.
So, real quick, just because something is going for a more realistic tone doesn't make it better. Maybe it can, maybe it doesn't. It's just a creative choice. It's not inherently better or worse if it's going for a more realistic tone. And despite the goofy nature of 70s era Kamen Rider, because modern Kamen Rider sure as hell isn't goofy. Um, the I thought the tension between Kotaro and his brother was pretty realistic. I mean, he's trying to save his brother, and he tragically fails. By the time he sees him again, he's already become Shadow Moon, and that's kind of the whole drama of the thing is the fact that he's forced to defeat this person who was at one time his brother. It even shows shades of that from time to time, but in order to save the world, he has to do it. Whereas the whole thing between Black Sun and Shadow Moon in the Black Sun show is kinda ill-defined. So again, he mentioned they're trying to put some Amazons into it, and that I agree. They put a lot of Amazons into the show to the point where I wonder if this began as like a season 3 of Amazons, at least maybe like a really early form of scripting. They're trying to do the whole thing where the two main writers are clashing over opposing ideologies, which is true, but I think the problem um, I have with this rivalry in particular is that while Shadow Moon's intentions are pretty well defined, he wants to take over Golgum so the Kaijins can rule as the superior race, which y- I'm not going to get into the symbolism there. Um, Kotaro does want to defeat the Kaijin because he thinks the world is better off for it, but because Kotaro isn't as nearly defined as a character as Shadow Moon is, and again I'm calling him Shadow Moon because I can't remember his human name. God, I'm so sorry about that. I'm horrible with names. Um, it doesn't feel quite right. Whereas to use the Amazons example, um, Omega in season 1 of Amazons doesn't know what his motivation is until near the end of the show, what he really wants. That's part of the reason why he's fighting, is to discover that. Where Kotaro only really has that motivation because a girl kissed him one time and told him as much. A girl who may or may not have been a double agent to begin with, which oh boy, that's a plot point that never got fully developed, which is wonderful. Um, so I get what they're going for. I just don't think it's worked as well as they were hoping for, which is another big disappointment I have with this show.
Now you might ask, what does Black Sun do that separates its themes from the ones Amazon's provided?
Basically, what Amazon's aimed for was showing the perspective for both sides. They have their well-meanings, but due to the convoluted nature of politics, there's an argument to be made for most things, thus exploring the darker aspects on how they can get carried away. What Black Sun goes for is similar.
What politics? What what political stuff is there in Amazons?
Similar in the way we got two rivals around a deeper meaning, but goes to a classical liberal point of view. By that, I mean we have the extreme right on the streets beating up minorities and advocating for their extermination just for being different.
So he's pointing out the parallels too, right? What this is clearly going for. And again, that's the problem. They're trying to push something into this supposed remake of Kamen Rider Black that's wasn't in there to begin with. And no, in case I haven't made clear enough, I don't think it does a good job of complementing the source material. I think it's just this other thing attached to it without really improving it in any way, shape, or form.
The radical left, who aims to turn the tables by making the Kaijin the leading class in the
no.
genocide.
See, this is the problem I also have with the symbolism they're going for here. is that as much as I hate to say it, the human activists are kind of right. Going back to the whole adding stuff from Amazon's thing into Black Sun, the Kaijin eat people. The Kaijin eat human beings. That's what the what's that blue gel stuff they call it? Heaven. That's what the heaven's made out of. It's made out of people. They say that at some point in the show. So it's while it's not as obvious as it is in Amazon's, it is the same deal where the monsters are eating the humans, and it's kind of hard for two different peoples to live in harmony when one of them is eating has to live off the other to live.
Humanity still segregating them as a result. The corrupt government who tries to appeal to the progressive side, but behind the scenes are doing shady crap for their own benefit. And the group of reason of the original members of Gorgom wanting actual equality between the groups where humans and Kaijin can live in harmony.
And before all you fanboys start typing away in the comment section about how wrong I am, do not forget the core appeal of tokusatsu, whether it's Kamen Rider to Garo to frickin' Power Rangers, has always been this: dudes in goofy costumes beating the crap out of each other.
Speak for yourself. Do you know how this technique started? Literally, it's been having heavy themes from the very beginning with Gojira, and even Kamen Rider stepped away from that simplicity it once had outside of some adaptations. Do you realize you're indirectly disrespecting this stuff? Yeah, the original Black had aged, but for its time, what they brought to television was pretty dang impressive considering the
But I'm not wrong. That's what Toku's always been about. Dudes in goofy suits stomping up models of Tokyo and beating the crap out of each other. That's why people got into it to begin with. Let's look, I love this shit as much as any other Toku fan out there, but let's not pretend this stuff is high art, at least not most of the time, okay? And I'm not saying Tokusatsu can't be this kind of cheesy, kind of fun, and still tell a great story. It can obviously be both. What I'm getting at is that Black Sun strayed too far from that direction, and that's one of the problems I have with it. It tries too hard to be one thing. It kind of forgets to be Kamen Rider.
amount they had to make, which indeed has its appeal. It's nice being able to witness these artists do the best they can with their limited budgets and schedules for a TV show that has something new each episode.
This has nothing to do about my problems with Black Sun.
And yeah, I know, there's all the different themes and context of each different series, yada yada yada. I get that. But did we really need to turn Gorgum into the frickin' Black Panthers? And no, not the Marvel kind.
Are you really making a comparison to that? Again, Gorgom isn't portrayed to be doing
Yes, I am. Because this entire conflict of the story is based on an issue between two races. And I'm using the actual term race here, not the term most people use it, because we have the humans and we have the Kaijin, and Golgum is a militant activist group within the Kaijin, um, who are using violence and lethal force against their enemies. Now, I'm not trying to. Now, obviously, I'm using these examples because I'm an American, and these are the examples that come to mind when talking about the issues between in real life different ethnicities, but in Kamen Rider different races. God, this is getting tiresome. Um, but that's what the allegory is clearly going for.
what's right. They're here to show how politicians will say all this progressive crap to appeal to the new generation, but really are doing shitty things behind the scenes like Imperial Japan. The priests were meant to have intentions of getting equality, but still are doing bad things for the party to get that right. And eventually, some of them see that.
Back to my point, the fight scenes for a Kamen Rider series, I have to say, was kind of a letdown. Sure, it's a bit more on the violent side than you would see from anything from the TV series, but compared to something like Kamen Rider Amazons, I gotta say, the choreographers were really holding back.
Dude, Black Sun is literally TVMA versus a TV 14 show. Amazons got pretty gory, but I don't recall intestines being ripped out of their stomach and pulled around till eventually ripping their head off with pure brute strength. A heart got ripped out in the final judgment, but due to the size of the Creation King, we get a closer look at the details of a similar fatality. What are you on about?
And I know they're going for the grittier, more realistic tone, and
Okay, that's kind of a fair point. I guess they are kind of the same level of gore. I think what it is just I think the gore in Amazon was probably more prominent than was in Black Sun, which is like what I think I was going for. But yeah, I guess at that point, I still believe in the thing that I'm just not a fan of how the fights were choreographed in the show. I think it could have been a step up. But in terms of the whole gore thing, I mean, I like the gore. I think it's cool. I think the elements this show takes from Amazon's is probably my favorite parts of it. I think the point I was trying to get is that I like the way Amazon's did it better, I guess. So there's that.
all that. But come on, man, this is tokusatsu. When someone does a rider kick and doesn't fucking explode into a billion pieces, you're doing something wrong.
That's your preference. They aren't obligated to do that. This show has a bigger focus on gore anyway, and stuff like explosions is to avoid getting overly violent for their younger crowd. Now you can make a gruesome rider kick, but the
Now, okay, hang on. I want to hear what Finish says first before I continue.
use of it here on Shadow Moon was made to be a surprise. And Shadow Moon, do you really want him getting bitch made like that? Nice way to tone down the threat level.
I mean, considering the fact that the Rider Kick is not only the signature attack of the Common Rider, and the fact that he actually uses the Rider Kick near the end of his fight with Shadow Moon, and it's not the finisher. I mean, come on, man. That's a little disappointing. I mean, come on. It's the finishing move. It's supposed to finish off the opponent. But no, it's the Rider Punch that does, which is I guess is also fine, but I don't know. I always thought the Rider Kick had a bit more pizzazz to it. So for the Rider to do the Rider Kick, actually hit the enemy square on the chest and not have that be the finishing blow, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a letdown.
There in the ending drama.
And well, yes, the final fight between Black Sun and Shadow Moon is definitely the best action piece in the show. That's really not saying much. It could have been a lot better. For one thing, the final encounter is just way too short. You expect something like the Battle of Heroes or Revenge of the Sith, but what we get is something that isn't much longer than a single fight scene in any singular episode of Kamen Rider.
Whoa, slow down there, princess. Your pussy is getting in a twist, making you say a bunch of retarded shit.
It literally starts at the 4-minute and some mark and ends at around 15 minutes, just like the original show. Yes, in the original, there's the end of episode 50 building up towards it, but in Black Sun, you had the prior episode where he absolutely slaughtered Kotaro. Yes, the episode is the length of 2, and there's moments of
That's not the scene I'm talking about. That's a different fight scene. Sure, it was a cool move to see that Shadow Moon after finally getting his Kamen Rider transformation, which is also something that's not properly explained in the show, where that second transformation comes from and why it's distinct from the other Kaijin transformations. It was a good villain moment, and it definitely played a part into the build-up of the finale. But that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking the final fight scene from. I haven't rewatched Black Sun since I made that damn review, so I don't know if it's either the end of the second to last episode or the beginning of the last episode. But I don't know. For all the tension they were building up for the point of the finale to be the Black Sun versus Shadow Moon fight, they could have done a bit more. That's really what I'm saying.
dialogue edited in between. But you gotta remember, this isn't targeting children, so there isn't even a necessity to have a fight every episode. I'm not belittling the original for primarily targeting kids.
I didn't say have a fight every episode. I'm talking specifically the final fight between Black Sun and Shadow Moon. I'm not talking the total fight time throughout the entire series between the two, because that happens. There's plenty of conflict between the two throughout the show. That's fine. I'm talking literally the final fight between the two, where Black Sun kills Shadow Moon. That's the one I'm talking about.
Because that's fucking stupid, and there's a lot of great entertainment targeting a younger crowd, with Black being one of them. But a big reason every episode of most writer shows carry a fight in some form while the adults can appreciate the every episode action and the deeper, darker elements added for them. Also, your other example is Revenge of the Sith, which is an entry to another franchise primarily aimed at kids. Just saying.
And I think the cause of that is the fact that the
What's wrong with Star Wars being for kids? What's the problem here? What does it have anything to do with the final fight scene?
story, despite being 10 episodes long, each one rating from 40 minutes to an hour, none of it actually focuses on Black Sun as a character.
Again, how does he not serve an importance? Kotaro trained her how to fight after so long of fearing for her life.
He did not train Aoi how to fight. He gave her one self-defense lesson. Now, to be fair, Kamen Rider Black Sun is not the only series that does this, but this is something that drives me crazy. Just because someone gives you one freaking lesson on self-defense doesn't mean you're suddenly a martial arts master, okay? Or that you can use those self-defense techniques reliably in a real life scenario. And again, realism isn't the point; it's believability. It's hard for me to believe that Ooi, who had no martial arts experience prior to the events of the show, at least as far as I'm aware, um, is able to do this stuff because Kotaro taught her the one thing the one time. You know, that's that's always bugged me when people do that. So naturally, it's gonna bug me here.
And even was the one who took his last breath because he needed her to. He's got his own thing going on too, as throughout, he begins to remember what he fought for back in the day.
If by his own thing you mean spending half a century living as a bum in a frickin' bus because he failed to kill the creation king the one time. Sure. Look, I get they're trying to go with the whole Logan thing with Kotaro, the retired hero who's getting pushed into service for one last adventure from a person from the next generation. The difference is that in Logan, Logan was still doing shit. Well, first of all, he retired because A, he had a long history of doing the superhero thing, plus a whole bunch of crap before that, because Logan's been around for a while. And the reason why is he retired is because A, the adamantium in his system was finally slowly killing him, and B, literally everyone he's ever known and loved was fucking dead. He had no one left to fight for. But even in his retirement, he was still doing something important, which was taking care of the ailing Professor X. Which is still an important thing to do, considering that he's one of the most dangerous people on the planet and is going senile. So even in his retirement, Logan was still doing shit, whereas Kotaro was just hanging around in a bus, doing small jobs just to make ends meet. But like, he had no fight left in him. He had no intentions of trying again to take out Golgum or the Creation King. He didn't try to get himself stronger. Shadow Moon points out how much he's aged because he hasn't even attempted to eat heaven, which is, yeah, I get the reasons why, but if he truly had any fight left in him, he would at least consider the option. But no, again, he spends 50 years living as a bum in a bus. He gave up. He failed once and he gave up. I don't call that doing something. I call that bad writing.
From his time with Aoi, and over time he learns to confront his past demons, which is what the ending during his fight with Shadow Moon, knowing leaving him back in the day was one of the seeds that turned Nobuhiko into what he is now. If anything, I'd argue there are three
Nobuhiko. Thank you. Shadow Moon's name is Nobuhiko. I'll try to remember that.
main characters to this story: Kotaro, Nobuhiko, and Aoi. You're just upset it takes a different approach from its source material.
And
If by different approach means completely alien to what the original did before, sure.
boy, the fact in the final episode he's getting replaced by this random teenage girl who was made up just for their show, that really rubbed me the wrong way. I am sick and tired of reboots pulling this kind of shit.
Could you even call this a review? No offense, kid, but nothing here has been objective. You're simply complaining about concept, whether or not it does those right or wrong. Again, you have the original. This is a reimagining, not just a remake. You should be glad.
What's the difference? those are two distinctions without a meaningful difference. Regardless of what you call it, it is a recreation of a pre-existing story. And in case I didn't make it clear in the video, I didn't like what the recreation was doing. I don't like the fact that most of the story is about Aoi. I especially don't like the way they try to pass the torch onto Aoi after Kotaro gets shanked. I meant what I said before. That really rubbed me the wrong way. I get what they were going for. I don't think they did it right.
Glad this stays closer to the source material than Amazon's, as while that reinvented the core elements, there's no shot or scene I can think of that's blatant. You have to
It doesn't have to. There doesn't mean to be any recreations of the original show in Amazon's case. Because what Amazon was going for was capture the appeal of what that made that era Kamen Rider so iconic, which was the bloody, gory violence. Sure, they're not. The main character isn't literally a dude from the Amazon rainforest, but that's fine. It's, at least to me, Amazon's example of doing something different while being faithful to what came before. That's the key word here. It doesn't have to recreate the original, but it needs to be faithful to the original, if that makes any sense.
analyze it to know what it takes from the series outside of the designs and use of gore.
And the thing just really makes this situation frustrating is that Kamen Rider as a series has done these gritty reboots for the Showa era shows right before. The first season of Kamen Rider Amazons back in, I want to say 2016, did a pretty good job of reworking the source material for a new show while still maintaining the appeal of what made Amazons interesting to begin with, and that was the violent, gory action.
I agree, Amazons did an incredible job. As for example, you have the mole who's friends with the heroes and helps them battle other Amazons. You got Haruka, while isn't the jungle boy Amazon was. He was a young beast who was found and raised into being a wild adult. Kinda the original concept turned on its head.
Okay, we both agree we like Amazons. That's great. That's fantastic. All right, now we have some common ground. Moving on.
But again, Black Sun did what Amazons did, taking a new concept and coding it around the original. Only there's more.
But it doesn't really take a new concept, though. Well, I guess it does while because the whole thing about for the whole of the monsters and humans trying to live together. Of course, the conclusion of Amazons is that that idea can't really work. Again, it's asking a prey and a predator to get along together is a very difficult ask for both sides because one's constantly trying to eat the other. I mean, I guess like the little dinner ending with Haruka's sister and the little Amazons might be an example of maybe that working out, maybe, but I don't know. Okay, this isn't Amazon talk. This is a Black Sun talk. Let's keep going.
Differences there being a lot of the main aspects are easy to recognize, like the main enemies still being the Creation King worshipping cult called Gorgom. There's still a big focus on the relationship of Kotaro and Nobuhiko from past friendship to current day rivals. The darker tone is still there, just up due to being for adults, not to mention the characters' names were.
But those are very surface level examples of calling back to the original. Sure, the names are similar. Sure, the premise is kind of similar, but the Golgum in Black Sun is completely different from Golgum in the original. In the original, they were basically just Shocker again. They had their own little twist on it, sure, but they were just the evil faction. Yes, the rivalry between Kotaro and Nobuhiko is the center point in the story, but again, the Kotaro and Nobuhiko in this context are completely different characters, and the context is different too. Again, the original Nobuhiko was turned into Shadow Moon. Um, he lost whatever humanity he had because it was taken from Golgo, which is one of the reasons Kotaro needed to stop them because they were evil. Here, however, the whole thing with Golgum, man, it's not clear if they want equality, if they want to rule the humans. It goes back and forth a lot, and I know that's kind of the point, and they're trying to do the whole Game of Thrones things where there's a bunch of political intrigue and backstabbing, and again, interesting. Don't think it works for Kamen Rider Black.
remain intact.
And no, I'm not saying that Black Sun needed to be Amazon Season 3, but what I am saying is that the changes they decided to make to the source material doesn't work for the story it originally had.
Care to explain how? Just seems to me you're making a bunch of baseless claims because certain aspects didn't appeal to you personally. I get opinions differ, but when you're saying something is bad in a more complex way, then I don't enjoy this.
Well, I guess that's what this video is for.
Then you have no argument to stand on.
And the story spends so much time around the issue of racial prejudice, which, again, I need to stress, didn't exist in the original Kamen Rider Black or Black RX, that by the end of each episode you are just begging, pleading for the story to actually feel like Kamen Rider again.
Oh, Jesus Christ. This is a
He keeps
reimagining.
saying he keeps using the word reimagining as if that's an excuse. The series is called Kamen Rider Black. I expect the show to resemble Kamen Rider in some form. It's called Kamen Rider Black Sun.
Of course it wasn't in the original show. Watch any reimagining, including prior entries in this series, and you'll see what I mean. Not to mention that's literally the point of making an adult-aimed Kamen Rider series, is to tread places even a Japanese kids show won't.
While I won't say Kamen Rider is as political as Godzilla with its history, it sure as hell has tackled them before, multiple times actually.
00 is about how capitalism has its pros. Double is anti-drugs. The original, he's fighting literal Nazis. It's just more obvious here.
The again, issue has nothing to do with politics. I know it's easy to people to mistake that because fucking everything has to be political nowadays, but whether why politics are, which I'm not going to tell you because I'm not a freaking idiot, uh, that has nothing to do with my like or dislike of Kamen Rider Black Sun. My problem isn't Black Sun's politics, or it's written politics in the show I have a problem with, but my main problem is it as an adaptation, which it is, because it's based on a pre-existing work.
And is that a problem? No, I explained this in my review. First of all, if you made themes any less heavy-handled, it would change a fuck ton of the concept, as one of the aspects that makes it stand as a new show is the political coding.
I know it would change a lot, because I didn't like the show I got.
It wraps around the existing story. Making that subtle, you might as well just remake Black with a few hints dropped in the pudding for the viewer to pick out themselves. At this point, you're literally criticizing it for existing.
I guess I kind of am. I guess I am kind of criticizing it for existing. Existing as a so-called reimagining, reboot, again, whatever the fuck you want to call it, as an adaptation of Kamen Rider Black. Because it's really not. With all the focus of the political intrigue and the characters, despite sharing the same names, being so starkly different in concept to what they were before, can you really call it Kamen Rider Black Sun? I think I wouldn't have so many issues with this show that I did if this was, I guess, as like an original Kamen Rider story. Um, if it was that, I don't think I'd have as many problems with it. I'd still have problems with the way the story was written, assuming nothing changed after that. But again, they called it Kamen Rider Black Sun. They advertised it as a recreation of Kamen Rider Black. That's what I was expecting. A more adult version of Kamen Rider Black. Because why would I not? Why would I not expect that? And that's not what I got. And what I got instead wasn't very good in my eyes.
As well as the costume designs really cheaping out. I mean, sure, the Black Sun and Shadow Moon costumes look pretty cool, but everyone else is just cheap Halloween masks and gloves and not much else. I've seen better monster costumes from the frickin' Putty Patrol than this show.
You okay, buddy? It sounds like you're stroking your cock as you mentioned the flamboyant
I thought you said I didn't have a cock.
clay people. Like, I get nobody else will fuck you, so a golem sounds pretty hot and all, but this is a fucking review for Christ's sake. I didn't click to hear you bust one out.
But what is he talking about? That's not criticism. You're just insulting me because I said something you didn't like. That's not the same thing. Instead of actually having a reasonable conversation, you're just saying things about me that you have no idea actually means.
Are we really gonna ignore Anemone, the Creation King, and the Crab Kaijin? A lot
Okay, Anemone's alright. I will admit, I forgot about that suit because it was such an early episode. That one's alright. The Creation King, that's not a suit. I'm pretty sure that's a puppet. Granted, it's a pretty cool puppet. I'll give it that. I forgot to mention that in my initial review. I thought the Creation King puppet thing was really cool. The motions are very puppet-like, obviously, but hey, I'll take it over some big CGI monstrosity for sure. Now, as for like the crab kaijin he's talking about, well, I mean, the head and chest pieces are kind of cool, but you can tell they're hiding the lack of costume with the human clothing. Especially the crab hands also look pretty cheap. This is what I mean about cheap. They're clearly not finished. It's mostly just the heads and gloves, and at least at the crab kaiju's example, the chest, because the whale kaijins like that, the bird kaijins are like almost all of them. It's almost just the head and the gloves. There's no full body costume, which again not a fan of that direction. Makes it look kind of cheap.
of them, at their worst, look like something you'd expect from the longer shows. Which, yeah, they've got an excuse because they're longer, but considering how good the main Kaijin tend to look, I'm not gonna complain as I understand corners need to be cut somewhere. For the background Kaijin, they're pretty much in the same boat as the golems and things like them in toku shows. Only you're wrong about them looking worse, since let's compare the details here. Again, no disrespect towards those shows, I love them, but they're longer, so they don't have the luxury of making things look this convincing.
I will admit the Putty Patrol mention was a bit mean. That was a bit an over exaggeration. But I still have problems with the costumes. Again, I think my biggest problem is that they're not full body costumes. I get it. I get they need to focus on where the money's at. So obviously, the Shadow Moon and Black Sun costumes are going to get the most attention, which is fine. Like I said, I thought those costumes were cool. But did they really need two of them? Did both Black Sun and Shadow Moon need two different forms for their costumes? I think that's kind of misuse in budget. I think they could have used that for some of the other um, iconic kaiju. Oh, the pterodactyl one. Also, just again, head and fins. I get these tokusatsu shows don't have the greatest budget at times, but like, come on, again, the monster fights is the focus and the appeal of this entire franchise. Let's not forget that.
But while neither can make much emotion, and admittedly, when you look into Lizard's eyes, it screams series prop, it's given the opportunity to give detail, like feathers, scales, and other things, while the Pussy Patrol, I say that because look at the photo he used, this is them cornering his mom before a gangbang. They are
Again, with the sexual comments, I don't get it. It's funny that he doesn't agree with my takes. That's not the problem. I don't know why he keeps going towards the sexual comments. That's not mature, not the most mature way you could have handled that for sure.
very much wearing a bodysuit with lumps and the like.
Do I think Kamen Rider Black Sun is a bad show? Yes. But do I think it's a bad reboot, adaptation, or whatever you want to call it, as, say, Zack Snyder's DC Universe or anything being produced for Disney Plus? No.
Bro, it's better than anything from the MCU, even with its bits of comedic elements.
That's what I said. I said it was better than those. What's the argument here? I said they weren't as bad as those.
And it's not even close.
I will say, despite all the problems I have with the writing, I did at least get some enjoyment out of it.
No joke, I guarantee this is his style of critique while watching the Putty Patrol give his mom a sloppy Joe.
I have to really ask what kind of pornography this guy's watching if this is the comments he's making. I don't know. I'm starting to think that he has a more thing for Party Patrol than I supposedly do. Just saying, he's the one that keeps bringing it up.
And if even after hearing all of this, if you still feel the need to watch Kamen Rider Black Sun for whatever reason, go right ahead, man. You do you. But there is a ton, and I mean a ton of much better tokusatsu out there that is much more worth your time than this.
Okay, I have to say, I do respect this courtesy here. I know I've done plenty of jabs throughout this video for entertainment purposes. He doesn't seem like a bad guy, though, and I respect how he's been handling the comments section. So
If I don't seem like a bad guy, why are you making all these verbal sexual assaults on me? You're giving me mixed messages here, pal. um, this how do I put this? The internet isn't like what it was back in the early to mid 2000s, okay? If you call people this, let me put it this way. It's a good thing this is over the internet because if someone said these things to my face about all the sexual things, I'd probably punch him in the fucking face, you know? Um, it is extremely rude to call someone like that when all we're talking about is freaking Japanese superheroes, you know? There's no need for this. So, if you don't have a problem with me, great. Maybe cut back on the really, really offensive comments then.
hopefully, a constructive video here can give you some actual food for thought. Maybe you'll change your mind, maybe you won't, I don't know. I don't want
So no, my 9 has not been changed. And I'm really confused on where the constructive part is. He pointed out elements of the show that I didn't like that existed that I noticed, but I didn't like the fact they were there to begin with. He never addressed those points of why they actually worked. He's just saying I'm wrong for criticizing them. And I don't think he realizes that's what he's doing.
to make any assumptions, but please, oh please, don't let crazy anti-SJW YouTubers like The Quartering or God forbid Geeks and Gamers get to your head. I'm
Okay, so first of all, don't watch those channels. So I guess he doesn't worry about that. Also, again, nothing to do with politics. I don't care what you believe in, and you shouldn't care what I believe in that sense. I'm just here to talk. I'm here to just talk dudes in costumes and motorcycle helmets beating the crap out of each other because that's what I like in my entertainment.
saying this as someone who used to be obsessed with that type of content, and it was a shithole of toxicity and grifting. There's still some anti-SJWs I like, even if I don't always agree with them, but be picky about who you watch, and don't let it get to your head like I did.
Being in when it comes to this specific context, whether you're SJW or anti-SJW, I don't care. I don't care in the slightest. All I care about is Toku. That's all this channel is about. Nothing to do with that video or any of the videos I make.
Because it can make you misjudge things, focus too much on negativity, and just create unnecessary bullshit that you don't need.
That said, we have reached the end of the video, so please comment your thoughts down below, smash that like button, and share it around. Also check out my review for Kamen Rider Black Sun. Link is in the description down below, alongside my social media accounts and alt tech. This is Gojin the Makai fan.
Okay, so
Leaving the bill.
that was the video. Gotta say, not sure what I was expecting. Now, in terms of the actual points he addressed in the show, obviously my mind's not changed. I don't like the show. Yes, a lot of the things I complained about, if they were removed, would completely change the direction of the show, which is what I want, because I didn't like the show I got. At the end of the day, that's the point. I'd rather watch the original Kamen Rider Black, and frankly, about 1,000 other things before I watch Black Sun ever again. Now, the thing that really got under my skin was not so much his differing opinions on the show itself, because, again, we're just a bunch of nerds looking for a good time. I don't care if you agree or disagree with me. It's great if you do. It's great if you don't. That's just how it goes. I definitely weren't a fan of the fact that he kept calling me a cocksucker. I was not a fan of the fact he kept calling me some sort of kind of prostitution, and certainly wasn't a fan about the comments he made about my mother. And I would definitely say that what's this guy's channel name again? Gojin, the Makai Phantom. If he somehow ends up watching this for whatever reason, which I mean, hi, thanks for watching my video. if you don't think I'm that bad of a guy, maybe not try to use sexually charged verbal assaults to belittle me, because that doesn't make you look very good. In fact, it kind of makes you look like a bad person. Um, so hopefully, hopefully this response video won't get me into any more trouble than my first Black Sun video will get. And yeah, that was my experience. My first response video, my first video of someone responding to something I did. Um, guess I'm a true YouTuber now. So that's great. All right, I'm turning this fucking video off. Good night.
I'm a Catholic whore, currently enjoying Congress out of wedlock with my black Jewish boyfriend who works in a military abortion clinic. So hail Satan, and have a lovely afternoon, madam.